Two, one. Welcome to the Thursday, August 21st edition of NCL Thursday Night Live. I'm Dan Manson, NCL Commissioner, and we're really happy to have back with us Franz from Skyline. Franz, welcome back.
Hello.
So we're going to continue from our discussion from last week. We have a lot we want to cover tonight, and we really want to focus on how you get registered in National Cyber League, especially for all of your coaches out there. So we're going to bring up the NCL page, and you should be seeing that in the middle of the screen right now. So Franz, this is where they start. This is where they go to begin the process of signing up?
Right. Once you get on here, I think a little bit further down, we have the actual registration button. Actually, it might be on the, I think you have to click on the fall season here.
Okay. I will do that.
Right.
This is the fall season page.
Right. And when you scroll down about halfway, the registration button should be there.
Okay. And again, it's the same price as last year for the regular season, $25 per individual, and the postseason, $25 per team. And the same as last year, coaches are free. We have our calendar here. So registration has started.
Yep.
Here's the registration. And these are the dates for the first game, not the preseason, but for game one, the individual game, correct?
Correct.
And here's the registration. Registration is available for individuals, $25, coaches for free. Let's bring it back here. And for classrooms, batch registration. So we're going to spend time on batch registration tonight, correct?
Yes.
And registration has started. Now, let's go ahead and cover the late fee briefly. How does that late fee work? Is that if you don't make it in by September 29th?
Yeah, so you have until midnight. I think that is on the 29th. So okay, everyone gets confused by the time zones. So on September 29th, that night, if you don't make it before midnight, once the clock strikes, then it becomes $35 instead of $25. And so if you try to make a payment after that, you'll get a little warning that says, "Hey, it's now late registration," and you'll be informed that you have to pay the $10 late fee.
Okay, but we're expecting everyone who can to register by the 29th. Yeah. Is it usually a case where we see a lot of registrations during the last several days?
Right. It's okay if you do it the last couple of days. I would not recommend waiting until the last second in case you're a little bit slow there.
Good advice. Okay, I'm going to the registration page now.
Right. So I think we've cheated a little bit. The first step is that if you have not participated in the spring season, you'll have to make an account, and you'll get a little prompt there to make an account. We're already logged in. And this is what you see after you have logged in and confirmed your email. From here, if you're going to want to do coach registration, you have that blue button for the registration there.
Cool. All right, I'm going to register as a coach, and let's see what it looks like. So here's the coach's screen.
Yeah.
And I have to give away a little bit of my info tonight, but it's worth it for a good cause.
Yeah.
My name, and do I have to give a last name?
Yeah.
Okay, that's my name. So what are the required fields here?
Everything except for the stuff in the optional section.
Okay. Do I have to give a real number, or can I give a fake number?
Well, for everyone else, you have to give a real number. For you, you can put whatever you want.
All right. And age. Oh, I can give an age I wish I was. Okay.
Yeah, and just you kind of went a little quickly past this, but at the top there's a little message there, kind of explaining the coach situation. So if you're signing up as a coach, you actually have to be a coach. You can't just be a student and get it for free. So if you're a coach, you have to have at least one student that is registered under you when the preseason starts. So if you try to sneak bias, your account will get disabled if that happens. And coaches here, they can register for themselves and then have their students register separately, or they can register their students in bulk at the same time. It's up to you. Coaches can also come back after they've completed registration and then make a purchase for codes for their students at a later time.
Okay. We had a message in Facebook that it was hard to see the screen. I don't know if this is better, but
And make a purchase.
We'll give it a shot.
At a later time.
Okay. We had All right. So let's go ahead here. And do I need to give any demographic about myself? Are you looking for the demographic?
Yeah. All of these.
All right. So I'll give a legitimate school.
You'll get a little warning if you didn't put everything that you needed.
Okay. Here's teaching. Here's teaching. IT. Okay. And you want to know the type of courses they're teaching, obviously, but that's an optional field.
Type of courses that you're teaching. Yeah. If you check them, then it's yes. If you don't check them, it's a no.
Okay. Got it. And this is an optional field. We don't. If you're a newbie, you don't have to.
Oh, you just put 0 if you haven't done anything.
Okay. Let's go down here. How many students participating? Let's see. I have 30. I have 30 students, but I'm not ready to sign them up yet, and that's not a problem.
Yep, that's totally fine. If you want to, you can sign them up at a later time, or they can sign themselves up individually.
Okay. And I click the pledge and submit.
I think you're still missing one.
Okay, what am I missing?
The red one.
Okay, an option here. No, okay. All right. So what have I done at this point?
So right now you've just submitted your demographic information, and now you have 2 choices. So if you're a coach that is going to make the purchase for all of their students, then you're going to want to hit the red button. If you are just registering for yourself, then you hit the blue button.
Okay.
To kind of show us, just hit the red button here.
Yeah, I'm hitting the red button. It says I want to pay for my students, but I don't have to pay at this time, is what you're saying.
That is correct. So here you can the price automatically will automatically adjust depending on how many students you put in there. So if you put in 1, it'll just be $25. If you put in 10, it'll be $250. And then you just enter in your payment, your credit card information in there, and hit submit. And you will get a confirmation with all of the codes. You'll also get an email with a receipt and another email with all of the codes as well.
Okay, do I need to give a card number even if I'm doing 0?
So if you're going to do 0, actually just hit refresh here.
Refresh. Okay.
So if you're going to do 0, then you just hit confirm registration without doing the payment.
Oh, okay. So the first one is if I'm ready to actually give my card. But now that I've done this, I am good to go as a coach, but I can go back in later.
Right. So if we refresh again, actually hit the back button and then refresh. Okay. So you can pay for your students again. If you just go back to the normal registration link and you click register as a coach, you'll get the same options again. It won't ask you for your demographic information because you've already submitted that. So we have that saved.
Mm-hmm. Let's see. You want me to
hit
go
the back button again if you want to get back to it.
Okay, let's go back. There we go.
Okay, so hit the coach. And then you can see we skipped the demographic information and we just go straight to the purchase.
So it already knows that I've registered as a coach.
Right.
Now I can say I want players.
Yep. And then you can do this as many times as you want.
So yeah, I could add a few, then I could add a few more and a few more up to the last day.
Correct.
Okay. This is good. So I know the screen is small. It's possible to just show the screen. Well, okay, let's give it a go then. We're going to take off. Getting better every week with this. So now you can hear me, Franz?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Okay, so somebody said that we had the screen was difficult to read. So I'm going to just go through the screen for a minute, what we just did, so they can see it. So we'll be off for about a minute. Okay, we are back. We know registration is good to go. We know we're going to get more questions on registration. What are some of the questions that we're seeing now? I believe we're seeing questions on batch registration. Do we have some additional advice for those that are looking for instructions on doing a batch?
So if you're doing a batch registration, the process that we showed you is going to be what you're going to follow. And if you need to do multiple batches, you just go through the same process again. It lets you just come in whenever you want and order more. There's nothing stopping you from doing so. If you want to, basically the process allows you to save some time later on. If you don't do batch registration and you have your students register individually, they'll have to go and self-identify that you are their coach in the system. So there's definitely a lot of benefit to doing batch registration if you're gonna go do that. And you can, if you want to go back, you can play back what we showed and talked through, and that should get you all set up.
Now, we may have large classes. If there's a large class and they aren't sure how they're going to register 100 students, do we have some alternatives for them in terms of maybe registering later? And what do we say to someone who has a large class?
If you have some more technical requirements and it's a very large class, you can reach out to NCL directly, and they will handle payment. And what we'll do is we'll generate codes manually and distribute them instead of having to go through the system. So what you'll do is you'll first register as a coach on our system by yourself. Don't make any payment for your students. Reach out to NCL, give them your information, tell them how many students you need to purchase codes for, and then we'll send out your codes that way via email.
What about an individual? We have a question here. What's the difference between registering as an individual versus registering as a team?
Okay, so so this process is not registering for the team. The team registration process is what happens for the postseason, which is going to happen in a couple months from now when we get that's after the regular season. So the difference is when you register individually, you don't have a coach, and the coach basically has permission to view your achievement in NCL, so they can see how well you scored. They can see your score report, which is a breakdown of how you did in each of the individual challenges, and that's the one big difference. If you register individually and you have a coach, there is a mechanism which will send out a release in sometime next week that will describe how you can register, and then after you register, identify your coach within the system. It's going to involve your coach giving you their identifier, and then you just go to your settings and then add them as a coach that way. And that's how, if you need to register individually because your coach isn't going to do bulk registration, that's how you still mark them in. If that's a requirement for your class, for example, and they need to see how you're performing, then that's the mechanism to do that.
And I guess another question may be, can a coach do a request for invoice?
Yeah, that's something that will have to go through the NCL, and if you have something for that, send it over that way.
Okay. So here's a new question. For groups with enough people for multiple teams, the makeup of each team can be determined after the regular season. Is that correct?
That is correct. So that is all. The teams are all in postseason, and the registration for postseason opens, I think, the day after the regular season ends. And you can either take on new members who haven't participated in the regular season, or you can just use the existing members in the regular season. And there'll be another process for that, and we'll do another video describing that when we get closer to the date for postseason registration.
Very good. All right. Very briefly, let's talk about the gym access. The gym is new this year. It's going to be Cyber Skyline. Is there anything students, players, coaches should know about the gym?
The gym, if you've done the spring season, I think about 2 years ago now, it's going to be very similar to that. So the big difference between the gym and the regular season and the postseason is that you get a guide that helps you along the way. So when you go and do all these different challenges, there will be a button in your sidebar which will give you the guide, and it will give you step-by-step instructions on how you go about solving the challenges. And that's really meant to help prepare you for the preseason, for the regular season, and for the postseason. And you're going to see a lot of the same concepts and ideas, and it's very much tailored to the same content and challenges that you'll see when it's time to compete.
Great. It's something to really look forward to. I wanted to spend a few minutes on the puzzle topic areas. I think that it's important for those who are playing to know a little bit about why we have these areas, how they are relevant to what they would be doing as a cybersecurity professional, and maybe a little bit on how to get ready for them. So let's start with open source intelligence. So the definition is utilize publicly available information such as search engines, public repositories, social media, and more to gain in-depth knowledge on a topic or target. Why is it relevant that those who are playing should be aware of the information that is out there on these areas? And is this something they need to care about their own personal information?
Yeah, this is something where it covers a lot of things. The first thing that's really important is that it makes sure that, obviously in security, you're not going to know everything. Everything keeps changing all the time. So it assesses your ability to go out and find answers for things that you probably don't know off the top of your head. The second thing is getting to more what you said about people's own private security, about the risks of social engineering. You'll encounter different profiles and personalities online that you'll have to go and understand and follow. And that kind of shows you some of the hazards of oversharing in today and online. You'll have to go and given like some piece of information about an individual, go and find out, what their phone number is, what their email address is, what are some of their social media accounts, and that process kind of helps bring some understanding that, hey, maybe I shouldn't be sharing some of these things on my social media because it can expose me to all these different risks.
And from an organizational standpoint, if someone who is planning an attack can do open source intelligence on employees at the company, that's a prelude to a phishing attack, correct?
Exactly. If people can, with one small piece of your personal information, figure out who all your friends are, figure out what all your interests are, figure out who your employer is, what you might be doing at that job, that's a lot of information that can be used to launch a spear phishing attack and get some of your personal information or potentially steal your credentials and abuse that.
So the second topic is scanning. Identify and use proper tools to gain intelligence about a target, including its services and potential vulnerabilities. Whereas open source intelligence involves a lot of just searching the internet and collecting the information, now we're starting to get a little bit technical, and this may involve the use of some tools.
Correct. This is one of the easier challenges that starts requiring some tools. It will involve you basically demonstrating that you would understand how to identify all the different assets. If you're, for example, doing defense for a company and you have to manage all the security, a lot of the times people don't know what's running on their systems. So this is a key component of that is, do you know what you're actually operating? What different operating systems are you running? What software are they operating on? Should these things be available? You need to be able to understand what you're operating and what it looks like to start answering some of the other questions in security, like how do I go about defending these? You can't do defense if you don't know what you're defending. It doesn't. It's a requirement.
Right. All right. Enumeration and exploitation. Identify actionable exploits and vulnerabilities, use them to bypass the security measures in code and compiled binaries. So what are the tools of choice in this area?
So these challenges, let's see. Debuggers for sure. We see people use like the free version of IDA. You can use GDB. There's a bunch of different things in this space. It's mainly what you're comfortable with and what makes the most sense. A lot of these challenges are going to require you to not necessarily use a tool, but to do something yourself, manipulate and understand. At the beginner end of the spectrum, you're going to get some code that you're going to have to analyze, understand vulnerabilities in the code, understand the implications of what that means. At the more advanced end of things, you'll have to get binaries and be able to do Stack Overflows and actually do binary exploitation. So there's a lot of different variants in the difficulty with these challenges, and it will require you to have a good understanding of how to use the tools that you know and be able to adapt and analyze the different things that you're faced with.
Now, in addition to the tools, subject matter knowledge is important, so the students can't depend on the tool to solve the puzzle by itself, correct?
Correct. You're going to have to use your existing knowledge. You're going to have to go out and search online for things that you don't understand and quickly become an expert. And these are all things that you'll have to do in the real world. you're not going to know exactly what you're doing every single time. You're going to have to go out and find out and quickly understand and adapt.
Password cracking, this is a favorite type of challenge, I know, for everyone who plays CTF. But it's more than just having a machine with a lot of horsepower, correct? It's not the one with the most RAM that wins.
Correct. We don't want based off of the hardware that they're running. All of these challenges, if you have the right tools and techniques, the password cracking portion of it should be very quick. At the most, it should probably only take an hour or two to crack some of these passwords. What's really going to take your time is being able to generate the word lists, understand how to use your password cracker. There's a bunch of different password crackers. You got to figure out which one is the right one to use, and that's what's going to take your time, not the actual password cracking. If you find that you're waiting, 5-6 hours trying to crack the password, you're not doing it right. You got to reevaluate. Maybe there's another approach you should take. But the cracking itself should not take that long.
What's your opinion on the use of rainbow tables?
So for rainbow tables, I would not recommend building them ahead of time yourself, because a lot of our challenges for password cracking, if rainbow tables would be useful for the harder ones, they're going to be ones where they're very specific on a topic. And if you don't know what that topic is ahead of time, you're not going to be able to generate a good rainbow table. But for general rainbow tables, like the one that you're going to get with for off-crack for the Windows password cracking, those are going to be very useful. So look for very common word lists, look for very common rainbow tables, and get those ahead of time. But don't worry about generating your own word list ahead of time.
Traffic analysis. Identify malicious and benign network traffic to demonstrate an understanding of potential security breaches. This is when Wireshark comes into play, right?
Yeah, you're going to use Wireshark very heavily with these. We're just testing your ability to look at traffic, understand what's going on. You're going to see a lot of traffic in some of these captures, and you'll have to be able to ignore all of the noise and find out exactly what is going on. Who is the malicious attacker? What are they doing? How are they getting in? And you're going to have to identify that from megabytes and megabytes of data, all the thousands and thousands of packets. And that's the real challenge, is understanding the tools, understanding the filters, and being able to quickly identify what's going on within a capture.
Log analysis. Utilize proper tools and techniques, establish a baseline for normal operation, identify malicious activities using log files from various sources. For those that are really into this, should they try Splunk?
Splunk can get you a little bit. We don't want to emphasize paid tools, so if you want to use Splunk, you can use the free trial. These challenges are really meant for you to be able to solve directly from the command line, or if you want to write some scripts to be a little bit more clever and accurate about it, you can try that as well. But this is where we want you to apply your Linux command line skills, being able to use cut, awk, grep, word count, all these different tools that are available natively on Linux. You should be able to use those to parse a file and get some of these answers.
So this is a combination of understanding basic tools. You don't have to, like you said, go out and buy any tool. The free versions will be enough for you for these challenges, but you've got to know how to use the tool.
Right. That's the tough part. There are plenty of different specific log analyzers and stuff like that, which may or may not be helpful to you. So I wouldn't waste all of your time trying to find, a SSH log file analyzer or a FTP log file analyzer. You're probably better off on your own trying to write your own scripts to parse these, or using the command line directly and solving these challenges that way.
And is this an example, as we tie NCL to a curriculum, to a class, that maybe the instructor can have a role to play here, and the instructor can help the students get up to speed on what the process is for solving these challenges by covering these topics in the class?
Yeah, there's a huge potential to apply the learning that you're going to get in class here. The things I hear from people learning Linux for the first time is, why do I have to use the command line? These are such simple tasks. And then we'll give you a very, very specific task that you would have no clue how to solve it otherwise. So you need to be able to, understand fundamentally how these tiny little programs can work together to solve some really specific problems. And your professor, your instructor will really be able to explain some of these concepts on the Linux command line that will help you solve these challenges.
Wireless security. Excuse me. Identify security posture of wireless networks and network captures. This is an area that they might want to go back to Wireshark with.
Yeah, we see this as a combination of network traffic analysis and password cracking. So Wireshark's going to be your friend. AirCrack on Kali or AirCrack by itself is going to be your friend. You will need to be able to identify, what type of wireless traffic you're looking at, what type of protocols and encryption that they're using, breaking those encryption, decrypting the traffic on there, and identifying what's happening on the network. So it's really combining all of these different skill sets into one set of challenges.
Cryptography is a topic that is covered in the puzzles. Is cryptography something that you're trying to unencrypt, decrypt?
We do both encryption and decryption. A lot of competitions only focus on decryption, but then they can sometimes overlook the fact that you also need to be able to encrypt messages as well. So we'll give you some messages and we'll tell you, encrypt it using this protocol or this method, and that will be some of the easier challenges. But yeah, the harder challenges will ask you to decrypt it, and for some of them, it will be as simple as running it through a program. Others will require you to do a little bit more thought. You will get some harder challenges where it's a custom, never roll your own crypto, but for this case, we're going to give you some crypto that we rolled ourselves, and you'll have to break it.
Great. We have a question in Facebook. Is there any documentation I can share with professors and or advisors at my university that goes into the educational benefit of signing up for NCL? So is that where we have the place on the NCL website on how to tie NCL to your class? Would that be useful to answer this question?
Yeah, I think that's more of a question for you. I know you guys have a lot of different resources that make it relevant for classrooms.
Yeah, there is a place on the NCL website where we have a testimonial from Joe Welch, one of the people who has incorporated it into the classroom. So Britton, please reach out to me, and I will be happy to give you connections to coaches that have successfully used NCL, how they've used it, and give you advice on getting it up and running at your school. So thank you for the question. The last topic area, web application security, actionable exploits and vulnerabilities, use them to bypass security measures in online services. So it's amazing to me that SQL injections have been known forever, but they still make the SANS top 10. Web application security still is a big problem out there, isn't it?
Yeah, it never goes away. There's been a lot more emphasis on trying to fix it, but at the end of the day, people still make mistakes. And it's important for you to be able to identify these mistakes and make sure you don't make them on your own. And I think a lot of these challenges will show you why you don't want to make these mistakes. And when you go about doing these challenges, tools will help you somewhat. I make sure you're not relying on these tools. We're going to be very explicit about where you can use tools, what you can and cannot do. We do a lot of sandboxing to prevent abuse, to make sure that if you're able to get access, that you're not disrupting access for other people. So part of that is making sure that you're not running tools that will DDoS our servers or create disruption for other students. So in general, for web application security, we say don't use any tools. And then if we explicitly say, okay, you can use tools for these purposes, then you'll have permission for those. You want to rely very heavily on your own abilities to understand different vulnerabilities in web applications and rely on your own abilities to manually exploit them rather than using a tool.
I'd like to, for a minute, talk about how these relate to what a company needs to be able to do to protect themselves, and how a player in NCL can communicate to a potential employer how they have learned these skills, not only the solving the puzzle, but the process of solving the puzzle, the learning process. So I see more and more that the scouting report is being used on student resumes, but I know when you go in for an interview, it's not enough what you have on your resume. You're going to have to talk about it. So what is your advice in terms of students really understanding the process of solving puzzles, documenting their learning, and be able to present that when they go in for that interview?
Right. So a big thing I would suggest, which is very difficult to actually do when you're competing because you have that time crunch, but take notes on what you're doing. It can be very valuable when you go back and you look afterwards and you try to understand what happened. If you don't take notes, you'll sometimes find yourself blanking. But if you take notes, you can see some of your thought process, and that's what will be very useful for when you go into interviews and you're describing. They're asking for, what are the things that you've done to apply what you've learned in class? How do I know that you'll be able to do the job? And when you can describe the process of how you found this really hard challenge in NCL and what were the steps that you took to solve it, and not necessarily what you got right all the time, but what you got wrong and why it was wrong and how you adapted to that and went and moved in the correct direction afterwards. So taking notes along the way will definitely help with that process.
So this is why there is value in having the write-ups that we share from a generic level. We think that the students can really do a good job of bringing other students up to speed on the process of the solving puzzles, but it's not a matter of just giving away answers, and that's all students need to know. Students really need to understand how they go through the journey of learning through NCL, correct?
Right, and we see a lot of people asking to do write-ups on NCL, and we love that people are that motivated and they want to talk about their experience. So what we recommend is when you're doing write-ups, make sure the focus is on the methodology and your thought process and how you actually went about doing that. We want NCL to be a growing community, and we want to make sure that people continue doing NCL. So we discourage people from just putting out the questions and putting out the answers out there, because that really takes away from the value of everyone who does compete in NCL. So if you want to do a write-up, I'd say try to I would say reword the question and change some of the specifics and focus on the methodology and your thought process, because that's what employers are going to care about. And maybe leave out the specific answer at the end or change it up so that it isn't going to be easy for someone who didn't compete in NCL to go and get all that information. We want more people to do NCL. We have a great community of people who do NCL. We have a huge Slack. I don't know how many people are familiar with this, but we have a huge Slack channel for everyone who does the NCL. When you register, when you log in on the dashboard, there's a link to get onto our Slack channel. And we have a great community there, people who you can talk to, you can ask questions to, they will respond to those questions. Every time we do the NCL, immediately following the games, when you're allowed to discuss answers, there's a huge rush of all these people trying to figure out how you went about doing things and trying to learn that way. And we really encourage learning. And so if you want to do a write-up, definitely go ahead and go and emphasize your methodology and your thought process. Leave out kind of the specifics if possible. If you can't leave those out, try to change them so that they're not going to be too easy to find. And if you want to publish it online, please send it to NCL so we can go and verify and make sure that it isn't going to be too easy for someone to find and kind of abuse the content that the NCL produces. If you want to share it with your friends, go ahead and do that. That's fine. But if you want to publish it online, we really ask that you submit it to us first so we can verify that it's fair to everyone.
Great. Franz, it's been a pleasure having you back tonight, and we're really looking forward in future shows to getting all the perspectives of NCL from the player perspective, coach perspective, and from industry perspectives. We really believe that this is a game that industry is going to be impressed with, and it really adds a lot more than students who just are going through a classroom experience. Is that something that you're starting to see, that the employers want more than what students learn in a traditional classroom?
Yeah, it's hard to kind of prove that you know what you're doing and that you can do the job if you're just taking classes. And so if you're applying for an internship for the first time, the NCL really provides a way to demonstrate, hey, this is a way that I've proven that I'm competent in these topics. I've been able to solve these different challenges, and you're really setting yourself apart from all these other people who don't do the NCL. You have some real world experience to show for, and if you score well, you always have that added benefit of of showing that off as well.
Great. Franz, you may notice I'm wearing the limited edition NCL cap tonight, and it's my pleasure to be sending you an NCL cap. And those who are on the show the last 2 weeks, I'll make sure that you get the caps too. And anyone who appears on the future shows of NCL Thursday Night Live will also receive this limited edition NCL cap.
All right, thanks.
Thank you for being on tonight, and we look forward to being on next week at the same time. That's it for NCL Thursday Night Live for August 31st. I'm Dan Manson. Good night.